Welcome back to another disc golf video, everybody. We are gonna do an in the bag. I haven't done one of these in a while, and since I just won my first MPO tournament yesterday, I felt like it might be a good time to go ahead and go over some of the discs that are in my bag. On the tournament real quick, first round I shot 11 down, which was 996 rated, I think. And then the next day, I shot 12 down, which was over 1,000 rated. So for the tournament, I think I averaged 1,001 rated or something like that, which is pretty cool, especially coming back from not playing as many tournaments as I used to. This was really encouraging, and the field was pretty stacked. There were a couple people that were rated 1,000, and then a couple people in like the 980s and 990s. So I felt like I had some good competition, and was really happy with how I threw, even though obviously I had some mistakes and things like that. Still ended up taking home the win, which was really cool. Yeah, it was just awesome. But today, like I said, we're gonna be going through my bag, gonna be showing you guys my workhorses and just all of the discs and things in my bag. So let's get into it. So first off, just so that you guys can see, I use a Zuka cart. As long as there aren't too many roots or anything like that, then typically I will use this Zuka cart. It's a smaller one because honestly, I've found that I don't need as many discs as I might think I do. And so I really enjoy using this cart. It's very small and compact. And it's super easy to move around with. But again, if I go to a course where there are a lot of roots or a lot of up and downhill, then typically I'll just wear one of my bags or something along those lines. So why don't we go ahead and jump into it here. First off, we are just gonna start with the putters in the bag. For any of you who've been watching me for a long time, you know that I putt with Keystones. And these are my Lure Dye Keystones. These are 0 medium, so they have a soft kind of tacky feel. I personally don't like really hard putters. I don't know why, I just feel comfortable with these. These are not soft or anything like that. They're medium, so they still have some good structure, but they are pretty tacky. The blue one is my throwing Keystone, which I can throw flat for about 150 feet and it'll go straight. If I throw it harder on a hyzer, it'll pop up and push. And then obviously I've got the two matching putting putters. Now the only other putter that I have in my bag is this Glow Maiden, or this Moonshine Maiden, which is super touchy. So I can throw it really soft and easy and it'll go really, really straight. I can throw it on a hyzer and it'll pop up and push straight, maybe even glide a little bit to the right. Which I really, really love. It is an incredible disc. I got it from one of the West Side boxes, and ever since then it has been in my bag just as like a consistent, super easy, understable putter that I can throw. I can throw it on a hyzer and it's just gonna push straight on the hyzer, which is great just because obviously we all like throwing hyzers, right? And it's just a good angle to throw on and it just pushes straight, which is really, really good. Now you guys might be curious, like why you don't have any stable putters, why you don't have a slammer or anything like that in your bag. What are you gonna do when you need a stable putter? I throw this Soft Justice. Yeah, it's not a putter, but that doesn't really matter. I just down tempo and I throw this thing. This Soft Justice is incredible for forehands that I can just trust to throw over on Annie and it'll come back, or I can aim fairly left of the basket, throw it on a hyzer, and stick it right next to the basket. So my upshot on the final hole that won the tournament for me, where I got a birdie, I threw this Justice as an upshot, aimed about 40 feet left of the basket. I was probably 150 feet away, maybe 200, something like that. Threw this thing, got it 6 feet from the basket for an easy tap in to get the birdie and the win there. I just trust this thing. It is incredible. I think Macy Valadiaz has some Soft Justices. They're fun, man. It gets so freaking warped and just dented and all this kind of stuff, but I absolutely love it. All right, now let's go over the rest of the mid-ranges that I have in the bag. A lot of you guys who have been watching me for a while know how much I just love neutral discs. I love discs that I can throw on all sorts of angles and get different sorts of effects with them as they beat in and all that kind of stuff, which puts the Bounty as one of probably my favorite / most used discs in my bag, or in my bag. It is a 4.5, negative 1.5, 0.5. So it is a fairly neutral slash understable putter, mid-range. I've got this Lordi one that's just one of my old Molt ones, and then I've got this newer one that I just put in the bag. And surprisingly, this newer one, it's less opaque, so you can see through it more. This one's a little more understable, so I can throw this out on a hyzer and it'll pop up just a little bit and hold that hyzer and push. I can throw it on big turnovers. If I really put some power behind it, I can throw it on hyzer and it'll pop up and turn right. It's just a really workable disc. Now it is beaded, which for some people you don't like that. When I first grabbed it, I didn't really like it, but I started throwing it more and I was like, I freaking love this disc and I want to throw it all the time. So the Bounty is like my go-to mid-range. Even if there's wind or anything like that, I throw it on a hyzer. I've just learned the disc, and that's one thing that I would encourage you guys to do, is learn a disc on all sorts of angles. It is important to have a disc that you feel confident with, that you only throw in certain scenarios on certain angles, because that way when you go and grab it, you're not gonna feel as, like you're not gonna be reminded of bad memories with that disc. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I have certain discs for certain shot shapes, and I only use them for that, because that way when I go into the situation where I have to throw that disc, I'm confident with it. I have lots of good memories with that disc, knowing how to throw it. And then you also have discs that you just are comfortable with, which is the Bounty for me. I know the angles that I can throw it on. I know what it does on hyzer, flat, ante, all that kind of stuff. And so I can walk into any situation with this disc for the most part, unless there's like certain amounts of wind or anything, and I can make it do what I want it to do. So this Bounty right here is the more stable one. This one is a little bit more understable, and honestly, I feel super comfortable with both of them. Next, a new addition to the bag is actually the prototype Supreme Fugitive. I do not throw this thing on forehand, even though it feels pretty good on forehand. The only mid-range that I really throw on forehand is the Justice, and that's because of the angles that I know, like I know the angles for it. Sometimes I will throw the Bounty on a forehand, or I'll throw another disc on a forehand, depending on if it's an ante shot. But for the most part, if it's like a straight shot or a hyzer, then it's gonna be the Justice, which I just kind of hack over. But the Supreme Fugitive is my backhand, like anti-flex disc. So if you've ever played out at Scrapyard in Charlotte, North Carolina, I throw this on hole 3. I aim at the trees on the left, throw it on ante, it pushes down, makes the fairway bigger because it takes advantage of the whole thing, and then it stables up. Feels really good. This Supreme plastic is ridiculous. Absolutely love this disc. Next, I've got my Chameleon Lucid Justice. This thing is a beefcake. Because it is a different type of plastic, it doesn't sit as good as the other soft Justice. It's also more stable than the soft Justice. So that's why I have 2 of them in my bag. This one is more when I need something really, really stable, or if there's more wind or something along those lines, I will throw this one. If I want the disc to be like super touchy and soft when it lands, then that's gonna be the soft Justice for me. It grabs just a little bit more than this plastic does. But if you don't have a Justice or a very overstable mid in your bag for those forehand ante shots that you can work lines with and all that kind of stuff, you need to get one. The Justice feels incredible on forehands. Absolutely love this disc. And then last, I just put this in my bag because I just got it. It is this Saki Bomb Orbit Harp. I love the way that this feels so much that I put it in my bag because I was like, I have to figure out how to use this. And I think that this is gonna be like my scramble shot, ante. You throw it up high on ante and it lands flat, because the Harp is not as stable as you might think it is. I struggle throwing the Harp on any sort of angle besides ante. And so this is going to be a very specific situational disc where I throw it on ante. I know that it's gonna either push depending on how I throw it, or it'll push and then land flat for me if I need to get around corners. So really excited to put some work in with this. All right, now let's get to fairway drivers. You guys know that I am a Stag guy in and out. I love the Stag, I love throwing it. I am incredibly confident with this disc. I threw this thing all over the golf course this weekend, and it was just incredible. I can throw this thing 350 feet pretty much exactly where I want it to go. And if I'm feeling super confident with it, I can throw it on hyzers where it pushes. I can throw it flat and get a good line out of it. I know my aim points with this disc. I know my power with this disc. And if I'm feeling good and feeling confident, I could throw this thing around any course and just absolutely shred. You wouldn't think that a stag is gonna be used a lot on an open golf course. Like there were some 400, 20-foot holes, like par 3 holes, all that kind of stuff on this course. There were a couple 600, a couple higher, and I was just throwing this thing because I didn't need all that extra distance. Like 350, 350, oh, that's 700 feet, cool. That's how I was throwing it, and I'm confident with it, and so I went with that. You don't need distance to be good. Does it help sometimes? Yeah. But some of these kids that were out there at this tournament, I'm not even kidding y'all, were throwing 150 to 200 feet further than me, and I beat them. So that just shows you that distance is good, but that's not what it's all about. If you could throw straight and accurately to where you need to be, you're gonna be in a good spot. And that is the stag for me. I've got this really beat-in one that I absolutely love that my buddy Gluten Slayer gave me. That's his handle online. And then I also have a Matty O one that's a little bit more stable. These are the Chameleon X ones. It's not as stable as you would think for Chameleon X plastic. But I absolutely love the Stag. It is an incredible disc, and this is like, if I got rid of all of my discs in my bag, I would keep the Stag, hands down, no question. Absolutely love the disc. If you guys have never tried one, you need to try one. You need to break them in. You need to like just do work with them. The different plastic types and everything, so good. Absolutely love the Stag. The next and kind of newest addition to my bag that just took over is the Westside Discs Bear. Now, this is the VIP Ice Bear, and it's fairly flat, which is why it is like my go-to neutral forehand disc. So it's an 8.6, -0.5, 2.5. And as it's beat in, if I need to throw this down like a gap or some sort of thing like that, I aim down the right side or the middle, and I know that it's gonna pan about maybe 20 feet, depending on how hard I throw it. I'm gonna pan about 20 feet to the left, and then it's gonna stable up. And it's just, I'm just confident with it, man. Like it's so good. It is such a good comrade to the Stag, working well together. I just bought a bunch of the Ice Orbit ones. They're a little more domey, so I think I'm gonna be using those as backhand discs. I'm excited to get in some work. I'm gonna do an all bear video soon, so that we can kind of dive into this disc and just like what it's gonna do, what it's gonna be like. I love this thing. Such a good low profile. You can pop it. Now that this one's been beaten in, I can like pop it more and it'll go on Annie and all that kind of stuff on backhand. I have a brand new one that I never use that I will eventually throw back into my bag. But this thing is a workhorse, a work bear in my bag right now. The other disc that I threw all over this course that I just put in my bag, you guys saw it in the video, is the Orbit Ice Escape. I think I threw this thing a couple times over 400, which is good for me right now because my distance has been struggling, and it was kind of bumming me out. But I slowed my pace down, I slowed my run up down, everything. I accelerated at the end, and the escape was just dead straight, man. It was like I threw this thing all over the course. I can't even tell you. I threw this, I threw my Stag, and I threw like my Bear and my Felon, and that's pretty much it. I did not throw a single distance driver except for on a forehand, and we were throwing on some very long holes. I threw this thing because that's all that I needed. I didn't need to throw distance drivers. And I would encourage you guys, like, unless you're just an animal and you can really pop the disc, you don't need distance drivers. You don't need it. And fairway drivers feel better in your hand anyways than a distance driver does, at least for me. So these, absolute money, absolutely love this disc. I imagine that I am going to be putting a couple of these in my bag, especially as this one becomes a little bit more flippy. This is a 9.5 -1.2. So a little bit faster than that Stag. So if there's a Stag shot that I feel like I can't necessarily reach as easy, then I'll probably grab this, threw this thing a whole bunch this weekend. One of the other discs that I've been throwing lately is this Orbit Vandal. It just feels good. The numbers, I believe, are almost the exact same as the Escape. So it's just a mental thing for me where I go in my bag and I look at both of them and it's like, oh, that one feels good. I'll just grab it and throw it. This is a little bit more stable because it's just this Orbit plastic. I imagine over time it might break in, but this thing just like rips out of my hand and just goes. Absolutely love it. It came from the Ricky box and I don't know if you can get them anywhere else. Love this disc, really, really good. Next, I've got my Lure Felon. This thing is a workhorse in my bag as well. Flat release, anhyzer release. It has been stable since the day that I got it. This used to be an Eric Oakley Ice Felon that I wiped the stamp on and got dyed by the guys over at Lure. Felons are just good. Especially the ice ones or any sort of stable one, any sort of stable forehand disc in your bag, that's what you need. This is what I go to. Do not throw this on backhand. There's no need for me to throw it on backhand. Like that's not what it's for in my bag. Throw this thing flat, like I said, or on Annie. I can probably push it maybe 250 feet, maybe 300. That's kind of the range that I like it for. I don't want to have to throw this thing super far or anything like that. It's just, that's what it's for. It's like, okay, I'm 200 out, I'm 150 out, whatever it may be. If I don't want to grab the Justice, I go to this. Incredible. Next, I have a prototype of Vader. This is a stable disc for me. I let one of my buddies at the tournament throw it, who can throw like 200 feet further than me. And he popped it and it turned, but it still came back. Like it didn't turn over. I throw this on hole 3 at Scrapyard as well on some Annie and let it do its thing. If I'm not feeling like throwing that mid-range or whatever. So this is one of those discs I was talking about that it has a very specific reason in my bag. If you guys have ever played Eastway, I think that it's hole, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, hole 5 across the water. I throw this, aim at the trees on the left, throw it with a little bit of Annie, misses the trees, comes in tight. So for me mentally, I look at a hole and I compare it to other holes and I'm like, okay, this reminds me of a shot that I would throw with this disc. That's what I grab it for. Nice little Annies where it'll turn and then stable up for me. Love this disc. Next, I have probably the oldest disc in my bag. This is a Westside Discs Sampo. And this one is freaking beat in. I throw this thing on the gauntlet at Hornet's Nest, vertical on a hyzer, like this, forehand. Goes through the gap vertical, turns left, and I've landed within 20 feet of the basket before. So this is my get out of jail free card. You guys know Yuli has his. This is mine. I can throw this thing on huge Annie lines. It is a 10 speed. It's a 10.502, but it literally flies like a 10.5 -3.1. It's freaking crazy. Haven't thrown this in a while because I haven't needed it, but it's just a fun disc to have for very specific reasons in my bag. And then I've got a diamond that is dyed by Lure as well, which I absolutely love. The diamond for me is a very specific sort of scenario disc. You guys will always hear me talk about quote unquote beginner discs. Everybody needs some in their bag, man. If you're in a spot where you can't get a run up or you're like in a position where you can't generate that much power, you need a disc like this because you can still get the same effect with less power. So if I'm doing a patent pending and my back is turned to the basket and I need a big Annie, I'm throwing this. Like nice and easy, it's gonna hold it for me. I can throw this on anhyzer, or I can throw this on hyzer. It'll pop up and turn and go to the right significantly. I can throw it flat and straight for 250 feet, just like nice and easy depending on the scenario. It challenges you to be a touchy player. I think that's why discs like this are good, because you become one with your disc, if you will. And that's what discs like the Diamond do for me. It makes me be very aware of my release, my power, my angle control, all that kind of stuff. Love the Diamond. All right, and then right now I only have 5 distance drivers in my bag because I haven't really needed them. Like, I don't need them. I can throw my fairway drivers far enough for me to do well. So that's all that I'm really worried about. One of my favorites that I have been throwing a lot lately that you guys have seen, I eagled hole 18 at Eastway with this, an 840-foot hole. I was 10 feet past the basket, throwing this on 2 forehands. This is a Destiny. It is from the Hand-Eye box. I throw this on flat on a forehand and it'll turn left and then come back. I can throw it on a tiny bit of hyzer and it'll just push straight. I've been having so much fun learning this disc. The Destiny, this is a great distance forehand disc, like 80% power, 70% power. I'm throwing it almost 400 feet. I was throwing this further than some of my backhands this weekend, which is absolutely nuts. I've been having so much fun with this thing, the Destiny. Kristen Tatar Grace. I absolutely love the Grace. It is an incredible disc. I'll throw this on power forehands with a little bit of hyzer or flat and just let it push and do its thing. The Orbit plastic is more stable than your typical Grace. And so this one for me is, I use this on both sides. I'll throw this backhand, I'll throw it on that forehand. I haven't been throwing it, I didn't throw it on backhand at all this weekend on a golf course because I was just throwing the escape and it was working. There wasn't any need for me to get that extra distance from this because honestly, when I started playing again in tournaments at that Eastway tournament, I threw this off a hole 2 and then I threw both of my stags and my stags were just as far as this. And I was like, okay, I guess that my arm speed, my form is a little bit different since I'm not playing as much. So I don't need this as much, but love this thing for forehand and backhand. If you don't have a Grace, you need one. This is a beat-in Tristan Tanner, or not a Tristan Tanner ride, but I have his sticker on here. This is a beat-in Rive. I love the Rive. I will power this on a backhand. I don't have my stable Rive in here because I haven't needed it. If there's wind, I will have a stable Rive in my bag. The Rive, the Royal plastic, everything, freaking incredible disc. You guys will see Ricky throw this thing just like an absolute animal. Love the Rive, love the Rive, love the Rive. Here, I have a Westside Discs Queen that is Orbit. This came from the box as well. This is my touchy forehand disc, just like that Destiny is. This one is a little bit more understable. And so I'll use this on big annies. If you think about hole 7 at the scrapyard, the only par 5 out there, the second shot, if I go too far and I'm against the woods and I need to get that big annie, I'll throw something like this or that Destiny, pop it out there flat, let it flip up, turn to the left. Absolutely incredible. Super fun disc. I can throw hyzer flips with this on backhand. I just haven't put enough work into it, but I put it in the bag recently as I've been enjoying those more distance, easy forehands with more understable distance drivers. And then lastly, I put this in here recently. This is a Ricky Wysocki Biofusion Enforcer. This thing is stable as crap. And it is in here for very specific, like just throw it on Annie and let it come back to the left scenarios, which obviously I'm not throwing this for distance or anything like this, throwing this for very specific shots. If you think about hole 16 out at Eastway, if you've played it, you need, the basket is up to the left and there's trees like directly in front of you. I hack this thing over and it skips up towards the basket. That's the whole point of this disc in the bag, very specific scenarios. Now that's gonna be it for these discs, y'all. Yeah, really proud of my performance this weekend, honestly. It felt good to finally get like a good solid win. I've been so close for so long and been shooting really well. My rating is probably gonna be 990 after this adjustment, which is insane because it was 968. It boosted up a bunch since I hadn't played a tournament in a while. It dropped a bunch of my bad ones. And then it's cool that like that wasn't a fluke. I came back and I had a 1,000 rated tournament against Michael Johansson and some other very talented, good players, and I stuck with them. And then this weekend as well, a couple of 1,000 rated players and some other really good players. And I did it. And I'm stoked. My game feels good except for my putting. My putting has sucked, which is crazy because I missed so many inside 20 feet this weekend, 20, 25 feet, and it's weird. Like because of the break that I took, my putting was just off, but my throws were good. My approaches were good. I put myself in scenarios where I didn't have to make those deeper circle 1 putts. So I think once my putt gets back to a point where I'm confident with it, I'm just gonna try and run away with some stuff, man. I'm having a lot of fun. But that's my bag. I appreciate you guys hanging out and hearing about the discs that I throw. Love you guys. Thank you for the support. See you on the next one.